I feel a little odd coming up here since Diane's a member of your own club. You probably know her better than I do. But here I am, the assistant governor, and Diane's been a member of the Bloomington Rotary Club since 1999. She has chaired the club's newsletter program, special events, and community service committees, and served as club president in 2006 and 2007. That's the same year I met Diane. The year before that, we were club presidents together, actually. And we worked on the Veterans Day together, so that's one of the nice things, tie-ins, to get to know everybody. She is also assistant governor of Area 3, which I am right now too, so, and co-chairing the 2010 district conference. Diana was appointed the Director of Community Services for the City of Bloomington in 2007. She oversees Bloomington's communications, human services, parks and recreation, and public health services. Previously, she served as Bloomington's communication administrator. Diane's early career included a 5-year stint as anchor reporter with NBC affiliate KWWL TV in Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and Dubuque. And maybe you come back next week and that guy did a rodeo radio thing. That might be the ticket there. Diane grew up on a farm near Cascade, Iowa. She graduated magna cum laude from Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. She holds a master's degree in business communication from the University of St. Thomas. She also attended the Harvard Kennedy School of Government's executive education program. Diane and her husband Newton have one son also named Newton, Newton III. Now, so it's 3 of them, so it's all good. And Newton's also junior at the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. And so here's Diane, your governor.
Well, good afternoon, Bloomington Rotary. It's wonderful to be here. Todd is a little subdued today. He actually got off a flight. He was in Nigeria for 2 weeks. They were looking at Rotary projects, 3rd year that he's done this, looking at past Rotary projects and potential Rotary projects. And he got caught up coming back in the storms that went through Chicago yesterday. Flight was diverted to Detroit for several hours, came back hours later after he had planned to get back. So thank you, Todd, for being here today and being awake. I really appreciate that. No singing, yes. Well, it's great to be here at Bloomington Rotary today. As you know, I have not been here very much this Rotary year. I've been making a few club visits as in my role as district governor. In fact, just to give you some stats, as of today, I have visited 52 out of the district's 63 clubs. That's since July 10th of this year. I've driven 4,267 miles since July 10th in visiting those clubs. One day, I had 3 club visits on one day, morning, noon, and night. My husband has been accompanied me on actually 17 of the club visits. He's gone with me to every outstate visit, which has just been wonderful to have his support and have him there with me. What I didn't realize is how many clubs meet for breakfast. 25 clubs meet for breakfast, so there have been some very early mornings. 36 meet for lunch, and 2 actually meet for happy hour. Jim McDonald asked me I was about 7 clubs into my visits, and Jim said, "So are you getting sick of chicken yet?" And I said, you know what, I hadn't even had chicken until like my 7th club visit. That's because we have so many breakfast clubs. But just to give you an idea, if you want to go out and do some makeups and visit another club, best breakfast, Waconia West Carver at the Island View Golf Course, great cinnamon rolls. Best lunch, it's a tie between Wilmer Lakes at the Oaks on the Green Golf Course. They have homemade popovers at their meetings. And Plymouth Rotary meets at the Crown Plaza, and they have an amazing dessert bar. And the best views by far, Glenwood meets at Torgy's on Lake Minnewaska, and Minneapolis Uptown meets at the Minnetonka Club. They meet on the 2nd level, overlooking Lake Calhoun and downtown Minneapolis. Gorgeous views. So it is wonderful to be here on my official club visit today to Bloomington Rotary. How many of you can tell me what our theme is for this Rotary year? What is our theme? What is our theme? Yes, it's engage Rotary, change lives. And just so that you will remember it, I have theme pins for all of you that I would like you to take out of little bags and wear them. And I want to bring up Terry Lowe. Terry, could you come up here? Please come up to the front of the room. Terry, I have to apologize to Terry because I was supposed to be here on November 4th to officially pin him when he became a member of our club. and I couldn't make it because my brother was coming in from Serbia. So I want to pin you with the official pin for this Rotary year. So I am going to go ahead and pin that on you. Thank you. Yes. All right, you've been pinned.
Thank you.
All right. So I first heard the theme for this Rotary year, Engage Rotary, Change Lives, back in January. And in January, they bring in the incoming district governors from around the world. That's more than 500 district governors from around the world for a big training in San Diego. And one of the big highlights of that training is when the incoming president of Rotary International gets on the stage and he unveils his theme for the Rotary year. And so when Ron Burton got up to the stage, he unveiled the theme, and I instantly loved it. Engage Rotary, Change Lives. Of course, change lives part of it. I mean, that's what we do as Rotarians. But I also like the use of the word engage. And it reminded me of my own engagement 25 years ago now to my husband, Newton. Shortly after my husband asked me to marry him, he asked me to take a boating safety course. A boating safety course. Now, why did he do that? Well, my husband had grown up learning how to sail on Sheepshead Bay in New York City, and he had his own sailboat. And my experience on the water, on the other hand, was pretty much confined to wading the creek back in the pasture on the farm that I grew up in northeast Iowa. So I went ahead and I enrolled in a 6-week boating safety course sponsored by the U.S. Power Squadron. And believe me, the pressure was on. I was involved, I was committed, and I studied as if our pending nuptials depended upon me passing that course. And at the end of the 6 weeks, there was actually a final. Well, I not only passed that final, I aced it. In fact, my husband had taken the course a few years earlier. He had gotten a 98%, which I remind him to this day. So as our reward, as my reward at the end of it all, instead of a diamond ring, which came later, my husband gave me a pair of boating shoes, which I keep to this day. We were engaged, and our lives were definitely changed. Well, this is an incredibly exciting time to be a Rotarian. As President Ron Burton told those of us who were at the RI convention in Lisbon last June, he believes that this could be one of the greatest years that Rotary has ever experienced. And part of that is due to the coming very soon, the end of our fight against polio, and also the dawn of a new era with the rollout of the future vision of the Rotary Foundation. And through it all, President Burton said the most important thing we can do is to make sure all of our members remain engaged so that we can change even more lives. So here are just a few of the ways that we are going to engage Rotary, change lives, this Rotary year in District 5950. Well, first of all, we're going to engage Rotary to increase membership. Now, last fall, we conducted a survey of our members, Rotarians, and we found out some interesting things. First of all, we found out why our Rotarians joined Rotary. Any guess what the most popular response was when we asked Rotarians, why did you join Rotary? What do you think the most popular response was? Somebody invited us. Any other guesses? Service. Any other guesses? Networking. And actually, networking was the #1 response. That is why my boss invited me to join Rotary back in 1999. But when we ask Rotarians, why do you stay in Rotary, the answer changes. And now it becomes about service, and it becomes about fellowship and friendship. You create friends within your Rotary Club, and that entices you to come to the meeting every week. We also found out that a full 91% of Rotarians said that Rotary was a good value for their dollar, and even more encouraging, a full 96% said that they plan to stay in Rotary for the foreseeable future. So let me share some background about our president of Rotary International right now, Ron Burton. When Ron Burton was in high school in Norman, Oklahoma, he was a member of the Key Club. Now, does anybody know who sponsors the Key Club? It's a large international service organization. Who sponsors Key Club? Kiwanis. Exactly. Exactly, Kiwanis. And so Ron naturally assumed that when he grew up, got a job, started looking for opportunities to serve in the community, he would become a Kiwanis. Ron Burton never became a Kiwanis, and do you know why? Yeah, nobody ever asked him. Nobody ever asked Ron to join Kiwanis, but somebody from the Rotary Club of Norman, Oklahoma, invited him to join Rotary, and now he is our president of Rotary International. Well, I am committed to growing our district's membership, and my goal is something that I call 5 by 15. That's 5% growth by the end of June 2015, this next Rotary year, so 2.5% growth per year for the next 2 years. Right now, we're at about 2,907 members in our district, and by the end of this year, my goal is to be up to about 2,980 members. That would be an additional 73 members. Every club is being asked to add 1 net new member in order to qualify for a Rotary presidential citation, and I have asked every club president to bring in 1 new member. And Chris, you got the memo, right? How's it going? It's going. Well, you've got about 7 months to go. You're in good shape yet. And I've actually committed to doing the same thing. So it's going with me too. So we'll have 2 new members by the end of this year. Our challenge is to make sure that people realize what a privilege it is to be a Rotarian, and certainly, most certainly, for our new members. I'm just curious because I haven't been to the club a lot this Rotary year, but I'm just curious to see how many of you are new members to Rotary within the past year. So within the past year, how many? Stand up so I can see you, all of you. So there's, wow, excellent, great. Welcome to Rotary. The main thing is we need to make sure everybody gets engaged, and especially our newer members. Let's get them engaged and involved and committed right away. So by inviting more members to join Rotary, we will change lives. This year, we're also going to engage Rotary to do more good both here at home as well as around the world. And we're doing that through a new plan from Rotary International. It's called Future Vision. The transition to the plan is being headed up by our past district governor, Sandy Schley. And basically what it's trying to do, it's got several goals. First of all, it's trying to make our projects, especially our international projects, more sustainable. What Rotary was finding was that a project like a well would be dug in Haiti, and 5 years later, they would find the well had gone defunct, but that big, beautiful Rotary logo was still on the well. And so what they're trying to do is build more sustainability into service projects so that they can survive long after Rotary has left the area. It's also trying to promote bigger and bolder service projects. It's putting the applications online. So Rotary is finally going online, taking away the paper process. And it's also trying to make these projects bigger and bolder. And in fact, we've got several big collaborations already underway in our district. One is a $100,000 project originating from the Buffalo Rotary Club. It involves 3 other clubs in our district, as well as a district in California. And basically, it's creating a source of income for women in rural Guatemala. They're creating bracelets that then will be sold in Ann Taylor stores in the United States so that these women can provide for their families' health, nutrition, and education. Another project is a large-scale clean water and sanitation project in Honduras. That one is being spearheaded by the St. Louis Park Rotary Club. Right now, it involves 23 clubs in our district making commitments of $67,500. Now, when we get that money matched by the district, and then again by Rotary International, and the lights are not going out, it's not your imagination, it is dimming, but when we get that money, that $67,000 matched by the district and by Rotary International, and then we bring in a large international partner, World Vision, that project is going to total $800,000. It is going to make a huge, huge impact on a very impoverished area of Honduras. Closer to home, we're finding at least 2/3 of our clubs are involved in projects that fight hunger in their communities. So our district is exploring a partnership with Hunger Free Minnesota and Second Harvest so that we can look at doing more good with our local food shelves. So Susan Freeman, you're going to be finding out more about that very, very shortly. When we feed the hungry and quench the thirsty, we will change lives. Next, we're going to engage Rotary to fund even more service projects by raising a record amount of money for the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation this year. So at the end of that district governor's training that I was telling you about in San Diego last January, we were asked to write down one goal that we were told would be shared with incoming President Ron Burton. So I thought about some goals, and I thought, these just don't seem big enough, ambitious enough. We should do something bigger. And then I thought, what? We could raise $1 million for the annual fund. So I wrote down the goal, and we had come very, very close to raising $1 million twice in the past. First under past District Governor Tammy Laurent in 07 to 08, and then under past District Governor Sandy Schley in 09 and 10. So I thought, we're going to raise $1 million for the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation. This past year, we raised about $650,000. We can raise $1 million. So I wrote down the goal, set the piece of paper aside, started working on some other paperwork, and then my eyes wandered back over to that other sheet of paper, and I looked at the goal again, and I looked at the part that said, and we will be sharing this with incoming President Ron Burton. And I have to admit, I did start to waver. And then I had a flashback. Last fall, costume shop in St. Paul. My husband and I, actually it was Karen Razi's husband, was working there at the time when we went in there. We were getting ready for another Rotary training, this one at Mackinac Island in Michigan. Has anybody ever been on Mackinac Island? It's beautiful, isn't it? So you take the ferry over, you get on the island, there's no vehicle traffic, it's all horses and carriages. We were meeting at the Grand Hotel, beautiful hotel, biggest front porch in the US, and it's very much like you're going back in time. And we were having a back in time theme night. And so my husband and I were looking for costumes for that. And my husband wanted to wear a Civil War era uniform, so found a costume for him. Couldn't believe it. We found a costume for him. And then so I was looking for a ball gown in that genre. Finally find something that fits me, but it had kind of a low-cut neckline, and I was hemming and hawing. And finally, the costumer helped me make up my mind when he said these words. You know what I always say. Go big or go home. And so that's what we're doing with that $1 million goal this year. We're going big or go home, and we will raise $1 million for the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation. Now, the good news is that 1/2 of that $1 million, $500,000, is going to come back to our district so that we can fund even more local and community service projects. Now, this club has been very, very generous to the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation. In fact, just last year, you guys surpassed your goal, and you raised $28,196. That's huge, isn't it, Todd? Yes. Those are big dollars. That equals $386 on average per person. That is big, just huge. You're a 100% club. You've been a 100% club since 2006 and 2007. You guys should give yourselves a round of applause because you've done an excellent job for the foundation. The other thing you've done a really good job at is you've done a great job of getting that money back into the club to fund your service projects, and Don can tell you that. Just this last year, you brought back to the club $25,575 for local and international service projects. That's huge. So you're raising the money, but then you're finding projects and you're getting them funded and getting matching grants, leveraging those dollars, getting matching grants from the Rotary Foundation. Now, my goal is $1 million, 100%. I know Jim Lucas, Jim McDonald, you're big advocates of 100% giving, and I've been telling people this across the district. I don't care if you give $5, $50, $500, $5,000. What matters is that everybody is invested in the Rotary Foundation, that we're all giving something to the Rotary Foundation. So, when we do raise $1 million for the annual fund of the Rotary Foundation, we will change lives. Next, we're going to engage Rotary to eradicate polio from the planet. You know, there are still some people who don't even realize that polio is still a threat. My brother is one of those. He lives in Serbia. A few months back, my husband sent a photo of me, and we're this close to ending polio pose. And my brother, being a little brother, jokingly emailed back, "Where is polio still a problem? Are there neighborhoods in Minneapolis that are still harboring this New Deal menace?" And I wrote back, "For your information, polio is still a New Deal menace in 3 countries, Nigeria, Pakistan, and Afghanistan." So there. Well, just a footnote, I saw my brother 2 weeks ago, and on a layover in Vienna, Austria, he was watching people put money in a box that was labeled "End Polio Now," and it was being sponsored by the Vienna, Austria Rotary Club. So they are collecting dollars there. So it is true right now, the world is 99% polio-free. In 2011, there were 650 cases of polio reported worldwide. And by the end of 2012, that number was actually down to 223. Right now, though, we stand at 328 cases of polio reported to date this year. Number of cases actually down 40% in the endemic countries of Nigeria, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. However, we're seeing problems in the Horn of Africa, particularly Kenya and Somalia, who've experienced 201 cases of polio this year. 180 of those cases have come from Somalia alone. And it was just confirmed recently that 10 cases of polio were found in Syria. And those are the first cases that have been found in Syria since 1999. However, there is some encouraging news on the polio front. The outbreak in the Horn of Africa is beginning to wane thanks to concerted efforts, thanks to your donations to End Polio Now. In fact, there were no new cases reported this past week. And in Syria, there is a massive effort underway to vaccinate 2.5 million children, both in Syria as well as the neighboring countries, because of the refugees who fled Syria. Also, I was just talking to Todd Bollock. He was saying that during his visit to Nigeria, they're down to the last, 45 cases or so this year, reported to this year, so that it's really dwindled in Nigeria. They're saying they will probably be the next country that will be reported polio-free, which would be terrific news. Also, for the first time in history, the World Health Organization had reported at the Lisbon Convention that they had not seen the type 3 polio virus in the past 6 months. Type 2 had already been eradicated, and that just leaves type 1 in active circulation. So we really are getting this close to ending polio worldwide. But, as we're seeing in Syria, no child is safe from polio until every child is safe from polio. Well, Don and Bob and I traveled this past February to India to see Abul Shiraz International Village Clinic, and while we were there, we had an opportunity to participate in some polio vaccinations. Abul had set up a clinic in a couple of small villages while we were there. And this picture here was actually taken at the first clinic that we participated in. We're in this little village. We, of course, the 17 of us coming from the district, as part of the Friendship Exchange, created quite a stir because they had not seen a lot of Westerners probably in that village. And there were it was very chaotic, as India really is. I mean, there were a lot of children, grandmothers, mothers, babies, small children, dogs. It was very, very chaotic. And so Bob Stowell, past district governor who was on the trip, he had the vial of vaccine first. And actually the vial looks just like an eye dropper bottle. You take the vial, and it's very easy. You just tip it over, you squeeze out 2 drops, and 2 drops is all it takes to fully vaccinate a child against polio. So Bob had the vaccine first. He vaccinated several children, and then he handed the vial over to me, and he said, "Diann, it's your turn." Well, in all of the hubbub, I wasn't even really thinking, and I tipped over the bottle. And before this beautiful little girl was in place, I had the bottle, I tip it over, and unbeknownst to me, there's a drop in the reservoir at the tip. And when I tipped it over, a drop was released from the tip. And I'm watching almost in slow motion and wondering, is anybody else seeing this? I'm watching as the drop is released from the bottle, and it's falling and falling and falling. And finally it hits the dirt. And I have to say, as a Rotarian, I felt terrible because I thought, I've just wasted half of the vaccine that could have saved a child from crawling in the dirt. And then I thought, we're just going to have to raise more money for Polio Plus. And so that's what we're doing this year. We're raising more money for End Polio Now campaign. In fact, we've got a district chair, Tim Mulcrone, who's our End Polio Now chairman from the Chanhassen Rotary Club. I don't know if we've ever had him speak. He's a wonderful speaker, very passionate. He's going to be our district chair until this thing is over in 2018, and that's what they're projecting right now. But he has already created collaborations with the Minnesota Lynx. We had a fundraiser back in September, raised some dollars for End Polio Now, and we also raised awareness. He was handing out pamphlets, and people were saying, hey, where can I donate to End Polio Now? The other piece of good news is that all dollars being donated to End Polio Now right now are being matched $2 for every $1. So every $1 that you donate to polio eradication through End Polio Now will be matched by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for $2. So that's huge. But they've been a wonderful partner with us, and they want to see this thing through to the end. And so before we had to bring our money to them first before they matched it, now every dollar that rolls in, they're matching 2-to-1. So we really are this close to making history by eradicating polio. And when we do, it will only be the second disease eradicated worldwide. By eradicating polio, we will change lives. Finally, at the end of this next Rotary year, we are going to engage Rotary to celebrate our successes. We've got people engaged already in this room. Our district conference chair is Carolyn Pratt. Let's give her a round of applause. And Carolyn is planning a special event at the Radisson Blu Mall of America. It is May 2nd. I know she's been handing out the cards there at your table, May 2nd, 2014. You know, it snowed. Everybody, put it on your calendar, plan to attend. You'll be there. You will be there. May 2nd, it snowed this year, but we're planning, maybe the snow starts earlier this year, and we won't have snow by May 2nd. No snow. But we will be celebrating as a district during the morning at the Radisson Blu. In the afternoon, though, we're actually going to be going down to the rotunda at the Mall of America. And so we are going to do a special service project there. We're doing a conga line down to the rotunda, right, Todd? Todd's sharing that piece of it. And there'll be a special service project. Actually, it'll be focused on Veep. So we're trying to get a lot of elements of our club involved in that. But that will be a fun service project, and it will raise a lot of visibility for Rotary in our district. So at the end of this year, we will celebrate Lives Changed by District 5950. Now, on this banner, you see the saying, a Rotarian is an ordinary person doing extraordinary things. And I'm looking at Jim Lucas because he wrote that more than 25 years ago as part of an essay. I've always loved the essay, haven't I, Jim? Used it during my Rotary presidential year. Let me read the rest of it. For those of you who've never heard this before, let me read it to you now. It says, a Rotarian is an ordinary person who wants to do something extraordinary, to rise above the daily routine, to make a difference in the community and the world. A Rotarian is an ordinary person who takes on a small task with unusual enthusiasm. A Rotarian is an ordinary person who has a vision of a world at peace, brought about by goodwill and understanding. A Rotarian is an ordinary person who sees 3 million children die of disease each year and asks, why? A Rotarian is an ordinary person who sees 1,200 Rotary Foundation scholarships each year and asks, why not more? A Rotarian is an ordinary person who believes that truth is a difficult yet worthy pursuit. A Rotarian is an ordinary person who acts not out of convenience, but out of conviction. And a Rotarian is an ordinary person who believes that service above self is more than an ideal. It is a belief that transforms an ordinary person into an extraordinary member of the world community. By engaging ordinary Rotarians in service and sharing the gift to be a positive force of change in our world, we will accomplish extraordinary things this Rotary year, and we will most certainly change lives. Now, it takes an extraordinary team to carry about such life-changing work, and first of all, I want to thank your president, Chris. Let's give him a round of applause for serving as your president this year. Also, the board of directors. You don't get a lot of recognition very often, but I want you to stand and so that we can recognize you and say thank you as well. Board of directors, please stand. Thank you. Thank you, guys. And then also, we've got a lot of people that are active on the district level. Don Stiles is heading up our internet, global grants, yes, global, yes. We've got new names for things this year. Don is heading up global grants this year. Let's give him a round of applause for the district. Thank you, Don. And Carolyn, of course, is heading up our district conference, and is going to do an amazing job. It's just going to be wonderful. Let's give her another round of applause. And then Todd Bollig is your assistant governor from Area 3, and he's got 8 clubs that he oversees, which is the largest area. But that's right. He's from the Eden Prairie Noon Club. Todd, thank you so much, and especially coming in today after a long flight back from Nigeria, so thank you. So thank you all for the opportunity to serve as your district governor this year. It has truly been a wonderful experience, and I just can't thank you enough for allowing me this opportunity. So thank you very much.
Now, Diann is going to stay around and ask. We have some time for a question and answer session, but I would like to thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks,
As a token of
Chris.
our appreciation.
Appreciate it. Appreciate again your
So
serving as
great.
president.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Questions? Anybody have questions for me?
I just think it might be interesting for especially some of the new members that may not know, including myself. Could you share a little bit about the history of how Rotary International decided to adopt ending polio as one of the main causes?
I do know it goes back, and some of you have been in the club for a long time and were there back in the late 80s when they took on this campaign. But it was a huge issue, and I'm not really sure what prompted them to adopt polio as their main area of emphasis. But at the time, there were, how many cases of polio were there? Jim Lucas, I'm looking at you because you were...
Well, it was the idea not only polio, but 5 other communicable diseases that polio, that the foundation thought we could work towards eliminating. And it was kicked off in '85, but the clubs really got involved in '87 and exceeded the goal, which was $500 million, I think was raised. But and they thought they could get the job done in a few years.
Yeah.
This has gone on and on. I know we just announced 2018. And a lot of it has to do with the political situation, the military conflicts going on in Afghanistan, for example, and in Somalia and other places where you really can't get in to see the children. So,
Right. Just thanks for that overview. Yeah. The interesting fact, our current president of Rotary International, Ron Burton, was a district governor the year '87, '88 when they launched Polio Plus campaign. So he's really committed to seeing this thing through to the end. Yeah. Yes, Becky.
Is there another big deal like that? I thought
There's been conversations about what's going to be the next big issue that Rotary is going to wrap its arms around, but they haven't made an actual decision exactly what they plan to do after polio is eradicated. They just want to get this one done and finally buttoned up. All right, other questions? All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.